Today on Gamers Couch,
The Witcher adventure game. Hello,
bonjour.
folks on the internet. We're contrary to what she said, we're not in France.
No, but we are speaking. Blah,
Actually, the weather indicates that we're in London because it's raining everything. It's like everybody's throwing buckets of water out of.
We have a winter storm. A real winter storm here with lots of rain and wind.
Winter when it's warm.
Yeah, like German winter.
No,
Anyways, you know why I spoke French? Because we're playing a game today that is designed by somebody who also speaks in foreign tongues. Not the French ones.
I was about to say now.
But
you just
go for the name and make it sound good.
You just want me to say. So this wonderful game is been designed by Ignacy Trzewiczek. I'm pretty bad with that.
Let the Eastern girl go with it and let her have a read.
Ignacy
was right.
Seems good.
TRZ is je. So that's
Trzewiczek.
Trzewiczek. So something like that. I'm very sorry if we butchered the name.
Ignacy. I actually tried to skip over the embarrassment of ourselves trying to pronounce the name, but obviously someone did disagree.
Yes, because that's my job as your wife, to disagree with you occasionally, like at least 5 times a day. It was in the contract. Anyways, no, for real. After, I'm sorry. Oops, I'm sorry. That was the ring. Anyway, yeah, we're silly. We're not reviewing Forbidden Island or something like that today. It's more of a Witcher game. A very lovely one, I have to say. However,
you're already giving away the verdict. Well, we already gave that away like 2 weeks ago, but
yeah. Anyways, we're being silly and unable to speak proper English today, it seems. So let's stumble through the review by starting with rules and gameplay, as always, then heading over to likes and dislikes, and at the end talking about any funny stories or experiences that we had while playing that beep game. I'm not allowed to say lovely because it gives away that I like the game, right?
What, the game? It's like
silly, I said, you know. So, babe, take over and.
Well, you started now.
No, it's your. I just made the intro. You're the guy for the rules and gameplay, and I'm sitting nicely here, sipping on my coffee.
I see. So, as the name indicates, The Witcher adventure game is an adventure game. Surprise! And if my assistant would get us the game board, in fact, this is the first part of some minor criticism, or maybe it's more.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
It's also a funny story because it's kind of a tale of how stupid I am unpacking these things. Be careful if you get the game to unfold the game board, because
it doesn't unfold the same way as others do.
No, it is. It is also quite heavy, and I ripped it a little bit. So it is also huge. Well,
and now we look pretty because we're not in the screen.
Now I can try to look in between here and talk to you, or we can just move that back. So, welcome to the world of The Witcher.
You know, in former episodes I had boxes in front of my head, now it's game boards.
where you find towns like Rivia, which is, surprise, surprise, the town where Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher, is from. And all the other places you might be familiar with if you're actually into The Witcher, be it the books, the...
MMO.
The what?
I didn't say anything.
The role-playing game, or I've been told there's a TV series, and I've also been told that you should probably not watch it. But yeah, that that is the game. We will venture across these lands and try to win the most points. So, as you may have already spotted here, there's a point track leading around. And it is already apparent there's predominantly 3 colors in this game that will appear more than once, namely being red, purple, and blue, where you can do stuff. So what you'll do with your characters, you'll move around these different towns, and each town allows you to do different things. Actually, it's more about the towns allow you or give you different clues that are these symbols here. Ultimately, you start with a couple of quest cards that you want to fulfill, and the first player to fulfill 3 of those ends the game, and then scores are counted, and everybody looks or tries to figure out who actually won the game or who is in the lead on that one. And because my arm is getting tired, we're now putting the board away. But memorize that, otherwise open another browser window or do whatever you want and refer to that board whenever we talk about it. So this game goes up to 4 players because there's, in fact, and excuse our shininess, because we like to keep each character in a single bag so we can grab them and hand them out, and everybody has everything a character needs to do that. In this game, you may play either as Geralt of Rivia, surprise, surprise, a Witcher game where you can play a Witcher, or his, well, kind of dubious arcane friend Triss Merigold. We want to do the wizardry. Talking about stories about The Witcher, you will find Dandelion in here as the bard. And because it's a fantasy world, and what's a fantasy world without a dwarf, Yarpirin is also, I'm sorry, a dwarven cough. Also in this game. No, he's not a pirate. Then that would have been Arr.
No, then you would have had a duck on your shoulder.
These characters are not just different in terms of looks, but also come with different special abilities and also have different affinities for the 3 colors we already saw. In general, you could say red stands for conflict or combat things, blue stands for magical stuff, and purple is diplomacy. You will find that going through the entire game where you have to do a red quest. It's typically about slaying a monster or winning a battle or something like that, whereas a purple quest will probably be about trying to work with nobles or some other crap. And I'm sorry, some other noble character who has to do that. Let's take a look at one of these character boxes and see what we can actually find. And I should have done that before, because now everything is in my hand, which is a big hand, but still it's
I have 2 hands to spare. I can.
You have this lovely character sheet that does actually not do a lot of explaining the characters. There's some pages in the rulebook actually to.
Give me the stuff, then you can.
Oh.
No?
There's some pages in the rulebook devoted to explaining to who these guys actually are, and well, now I guess it depends. If you're already familiar with the Witcher universe, you probably know what's in there already because you either played the games or did some other interesting stuff. If you're not interested in the Witcher universe, well, if you kind of feel intrigued, look at it, and that may lead you to checking out the other stuff. I don't think it's necessary to know that to play this game, although it's a nice touch to have. Yeah. Let's not complain about too much stuff. This being a Fantasy Flight game, there's some really nice looking components. So everybody comes, every character has his little figurine, and don't be deceived, this is not a game like Mice and Mystics or Descent where you actually move around and do combat stuff. This is just a generic player marker. It's still it's a nice mini add that. Also, you'll find, is specifically for your character, a deck of cards, which you can, well, I'll go to what you can actually do in a turn, but these cards are like your equipment or your friends that you can try to bring out and give you a bonus. In fact, the entire gameplay of a character is pretty much all about what's in these, giving you more rolls to do tests, maybe having to have a single die side do something special, and so on and so on. Also, you'll get player-specific dice in here. Geralt happens to have 3 dice, so that is actually one of his advantages over the other characters. But these Geralt's 2 dice come with special symbols.
Gonna go out of frame.
No,
it's there. Yeah, is it?
No, not
And
anymore.
now, damn.
We will. I think there's a now Geralt's third die. So these typically have all the same symbols, meaning it's a shield or sword or a symbol that means a dodge symbol, an evasion symbol. Geralt comes with like a little, I guess you can't see it. So trust me when I say this side shows a hand with an art symbol on there, which is kind of his Witcher magic stuff. There's also a side showing 2 swords, but not on this die. It's on this die, counting as 2 swords in checks, tests, and so on and so on. And then there's a bunch of just little markers to indicate how many points you have, and what kind of support quests others can do for you. Don't be mistaken, the Witcher adventure game is, despite all those characters being friends and kind of working together in the books and in the game, this is a competitive game. So it's a race for who has the most points and then ends the game with that. While you're playing on your turn, you have a couple of actions you can do. And each action can only be taken once, given that you're not injured, but we get to that right away. So you can do either, and these are in fact actions everybody can do. You can travel, meaning you can move from one town to the next town. You can fast travel, kind of, which means you can move 2 towns further, but then you have to take a card that gives you a penalty for something. You can investigate. Now, if you still have that other browser window open, you can see that each town has a specific little magnifying glass with either 1, 2, or 3 colors attached to that. Some even have 2 magnifying glasses, meaning if you move there, you get one of these investigation markers, but you can try to gain more by investigating in that town and trying to get or choosing to draw one of these cards, which also come in 3 different colors, which means you're taking like a side quest, a mini quest in that town, and have to do. Usually, you have to do something, or sometimes you're lucky you just get something. But we'll take a look at those a little bit later. Then you can develop. Develop is typically meaning you pick the cards, or you draw a couple of cards from your stack, choose 1 or 2, or however, depending on the character, and then put the others back under your stack of cards, and you leave them out with the effect going on what's in there. Typically, that's something you want to do early in the game, trying to develop your character and have certain special skills out, special effects out that allow you to overcome the obstacles during the adventure. And then there's a couple of things, or a special skill that is tied to the character. In Geralt's case, it is brew. So he has a special card in here that is called Potion. And the way most of these cards work is you have to first get the card out and then charge them up by placing a token on them. In this case, Geralt has to use the brew action to place tokens on all of his potion cards. other characters like Triss has to charge a card by putting just one token on one card. So each character is a little bit different in handling that. But in general, you can say they all bring cards out, have to charge them up, and then use the ability whenever they want to. And last but not least, there's a rest action to get rid of wounds. Looking again at this sheet, there's little hearts next to the actions. Whenever in the game you take a wound, you have to place a heart marker on there, and as long as there's a heart marker, you cannot use that action. Essentially forcing you to do a rest action if you have all 4 other actions filled up with wounds. It can even get worse. The rest action allows you to heal 2 wounds at once or 1 serious wound. So if a wound gets worse, you just flip it over and set a slightly different symbol. Another thing that is important for each character and different for each character is the exchange rate shown down here. So the entire game or the entire set of quests is typically about, and I hope you can see that, getting these little colored magnifying glasses, and which are called, was it hints and trails? I forgot.
Me too.
As it... Yeah, leads. They're called leads.
Yeah.
Because if you follow up the leads, you find evidence, which are these slightly... proof, yeah, these slightly bigger tokens. Wonderfully abstract. What it all boils down to is that sometimes a quest requires you to accumulate 2 proof of a certain color, or one of the one color, one of the other color. So you go through town, from town to town. Just moving to a new town typically rewards you with these little tokens. Doing investigations in that town also gives you tokens, and depending on which character you are, you can exchange the leads for proof or evidence. And this says Geralt can exchange 3 red leads for 1 proof, but he needs 5 blue for 1 blue proof and 7 purple for... So Geralt, again, no surprise, being the Witcher combat guy, is better at solving combat things and solving those quests. In fact, this card also says which, on here it also says on which quest cards Geralt is allowed to draw. So when the game starts, you pick 2 quest cards, choose one, put the other one away. Depending on your character, you have to either pick a red one, a blue one, or a purple one. And there's also at least one character who, like Yarpin, who is allowed to choose between purple and blue. And also he has a fairly balanced exchange rate, because he, for example, has to pay 5 of each leads to gain proof. And with that, you pretty much know everything you can do with each character. As I said, they differ slightly. So let's take a look at those quests you actually have to do. Quests are these slightly bigger cards. A quest usually has fluff text, a main quest, side quests, a support quest, and consequences. The main quest is what you'll have to do to, well, get rid of that card and get a new one. In this case, you have to gain... I hope someone can see that. See it. See it. See it blurry. So this says you have to actually pay 2 red proofs. And once you do that, you gain 8 victory points. That's the number right to the side. Talking about sides, on your way of doing that, you may complete side quests, and every card has 2 side quests. This one says, try to negotiate with the Renegade Commander, spend 4 purple leads. And the second one is, learn who's behind his actions, go to Sintra, which nicely puts us to how do you complete quests. Most of the time it is paying these tokens, or upgrading the tokens to the proofs. Sometimes you can complete quests by going somewhere, and there's also a couple of quests where you have to go to a certain location and to be able to solve that quest. Then there's also a support quest. You cannot actually do that yourself. The support quest is there for another player who happens to be in the same town as your character to fulfill whatever the support quest is saying. In this case is you could use help tracking the battle-hardened elf. Spend 3 red... I'm so sorry. I again forget
proofs.
No leads. Yeah.
Leads.
I just have to think about some town in Britain. Yeah.
Where it's raining, just like in
Yeah,
our town.
it's because that's why I'm having a hard time remembering. So the support quests allow other players to gain points off you, but you still benefit from that. You see, the case with the support quest is someone else has to spend those 3, and they get 6 victory points for that, but you still benefit a little bit because you're getting 3 victory points for that. That doesn't sound like much. It's actually a pretty fair thing to do, and we found while playing, I'm not going ahead of ourselves, but that it does make a difference. And below you see the rewards you would get for the side quests, and also a little summary, like the first side quest, I said you have to pay 4 purple leads. It again says 4 purple of these symbols, and you would get 5 victory points for that. The second one is just go somewhere, has this location thing, and you only get 3 for that, but going somewhere is actually quite easy to achieve. Although I wouldn't go out of my way to get there just to keep each side quest. The important part is to get the main quest done, and it's kind of a race, because as I said earlier, the first one to complete 3 of these cards wins the game, well, ends the game, and typically that person also has a lot of points then. So chances are that you could win the game. And all of these are fairly similar. One thing is this card is worth 8 victory points, which is, I think, on the lower end. If you take a look at this blue card, this gives 12, but requires you to get 2 different kinds of proofs. Or this one is even more worth 16 victory points, but requires you to get a red and a purple proof. So probably this takes way longer to solve than this one. Then again, if you're really good with solving these, it will give you quite an advantage in victory points, being, well, obviously worth twice as much as this one. And if you get ahead of everybody else, you might have to force them to pursue other ways to catch up to you without actually ending the game and doing some interesting considerations. Conflict or tests is usually done by rolling dice. So I think actually you can get that back. So in this main quest, and I'm sorry, I entirely forgot one other thing. So in this case, the red quest also says you have to pay 2 of those red things, and you have to combat an enemy. And these little tiny symbols mean fighting the enemy. You have to roll 4 swords and 3 shields. You always have the generic battle dice, which are these grey ones, and then either your 1 character die, or in Geralt's case, you actually roll up to 6 dice, having his 3 red and the 3 generic ones. Now the generic ones have a face that does nothing, a sword, a shield, and where is it? The evasion symbol.
They are just on the character dice, honey.
Well, so to beat that enemy, you have to roll your dice and yield 4 swords and 3 shields somehow. Now, getting that with 6 dice seems difficult, but as I said earlier, these development cards give you potions, give you additional magic, which usually say something like, if you spend a die with this symbol, or if you spend one of the tokens you use to power up the card, that counts for another sword, or a sword and a shield, or that doubles all your swords and stuff like that. Now these enemies or checks usually have 2 things written on them, one being the success consequence, which then gives you either money or victory points or some other neat stuff. Or says what happens if you fail. And there are actually two different fail states depending on if you fail the defense roll or if you fail the sword, the offense roll. So in case if you fail both, you actually have to suffer both consequences. If you win the sword one but fail the shield one, it's literally a thing of, yes, you killed the monster, but while doing so, it still wounded you, and you have to suffer that. In this case, it says if you fail the swords, advance the war track, and I'll talk about that in a small moment. And if you fail the shield roll, you suffer 1 heart for each shield that you're short. And that's how you get wounded in fights. And after finishing the quest, you also have to deal with the consequences, which are written down here. In this case, you get a good fortune card and suffer another wound. So not all of these are necessarily good. Talking about fortunes, there's good fortune cards, being white, surprise, and bad fortune cards, which are black. The good fortune cards are always good. I don't think there's we never had any good fortune that is actually bad.
No, there was just some that were not helping. Like they're just like meh.
Yeah.
And most of them, however, were really good.
So you can typically these cards say the condition under which you can play them, and they either do something good like heal you or allow you to avoid a monster or something like that. The bad fortune cards are almost always bad or at least neutral, which is the case for this one, which just says nothing happens. Some of those give you a wound, force you to encounter an enemy, draw something, or get a foul fate token, which is also placed on your character sheet, but not on the heart side, but on the skull side. The way that works is the next time you use that action, you have to draw another foul fate card, and then the token gets removed. Now that is kind of the main thing to do in the game. Things that keep you from doing that are monsters and foul fate tokens. And maybe we need to get the board again, because I at least want to show you the war track and what that means. And if I'm lucky, I can open that up, yes, without actually having to do the entire thing. So the foul fate cards rest up here, get discarded here, and this here is the war track. Whenever it says advance the war track, you have to move a token over here, and then either a new foul fate token comes into play or a monster, in this case a bronze one or a silver one. There's also gold monsters. These get then placed on these areas over here, and yes, the monsters can stack. Foul fate cannot stack, but you would then draw one of these tokens for yourself. The way that works is once a monster is on these and you move into a region, and these are color-coded, so it might be difficult to see from your side, but I can see and will tell you this is purple, this is white, this is orange, blue, yellow, and green, and all the towns down here have the same kind of colors, red, white, blue, meaning if you end your turn on one of these cities, you have to deal with whatever is in this thing here. So, but you still have a choice depending on how much stuff is available here. If a foul fate token is here, you can choose to draw a foul fate card and deal with that. Then the token is removed. You can also choose to deal with a monster, and if there's several monsters available here, you can choose which one to engage and combat that. Bringing us to monsters. And when monsters come into play, they look like this, because you don't know what they are. Bronze, silver, and gold, as I said earlier. Once you encounter one, it gets flipped over and shows you what you are actually have to fight. In this case, an Echinops. These also come with check markers like swords to roll, shields to roll, and usually, at least one failed state, but some of them, like the Striga, if you remember the first Witcher game, you are familiar with this princess. Spoiler.
You say spoiler before you reveal something, not afterwards.
No, I'm sorry. Just watch the video in reverse, and then my spoiler warning will be. Anyway, so this one says you have to roll five swords and 5 shields. If you manage to roll all the swords, you receive 3 victory points and 2 gold. If you fail to roll the shields, you suffer 1 heart for each thing that you shot. So in fact, this doesn't have a fail condition for if you don't manage to roll all the swords, but just for the shield. So it could happen that you are not able to beat the Striga by not being able to roll all the swords, but manage to defend against it. In case that happens, this goes back and, well, that's it. You can choose to encounter it next time again, or move to a different region and do some fun stuff there. These also, as you may have heard me say, that allow you to gain you victory points. Something Geralt is really good with, because he has his 3 extra dice. He's pretty good in killing things, rolling swords, rolling shields, while other characters have a harder time at doing that. Specifically, Dandelion, who's a bard and a coward. Now, he's a bard and tries to avoid conflict. His special abilities might say you can avoid a certain monster, or can avoid having to deal with any of those, which is also quite useful. So each character has a different angle or different way of getting points, works with that, which are in fact quite thematic as well. As I said, the third quest got done, the game ends. One thing to say for each character, I already mentioned Geralt is pretty good at fighting stuff, producing shields and swords. While we were talking about Dandelion is pretty good at avoiding conflict and gets a lot of points by supporting others. So he has a lot of cards, or let's take a look at him. So Dandelion, this
dude,
dapper bard. His special ability is to sing, which gives him 2 money. I mentioned money before. Money does not really have a big purpose in this game. There's, I think, two paths between cities where you have to pay money to use them. Other than that, in his case, because, well, he's a kind of sometimes shady kind of dude, he uses money to bribe his friends. So that's the way how he charges his development cards. So he sings to gain money, and then can spend money to make things happen. Let's say, avoid a monster, so he calls a friend who deals with the monster, or causes a distraction or something like that. He's also pretty good at solving purple quests, not only because his card is purple, but because he says his exchange rate is 3 purple leads for 1 purple proof. And a lot of his cards say, whenever any other player does slay a monster, he gets a victory point, because he's performing a song about their feats. So this is quite thematic in terms of gameplay, of dealing. The other one, let's go from more famous to least famous. Triss. Triss is a wizard. Sorceress? Whatever.
Witch.
No, she's Sarah, excuse Sarah, she's not too familiar with the lore of the Witcher universe, but she's a wizard who...
her or me?
Wizard. Dofus.
A noise. Oh, what?
I'm sorry, I pointed at the duck.
Wizard, lizard. No,
Triss,
go.
Triss is... she I couldn't even say she has a particular strength in her development cards. They're all over the place. They're actually a little bit similar to what Geralt has, in terms of you may, if you roll this symbol, and you can spend 1 token and it counts as a sword, or it counts as a shield. She has cards that allow her to move by teleportation, which is, in a game where you have to move around a lot, super useful. And yeah, that's pretty much what she's doing. I think in terms of thematic tie-in, I found her to be the weakest, but maybe you could say, well, magic makes for versatility, so she is versatile in whatever she's doing. An entirely different beast at well, how he holds himself at that game is Yarpen. Yarpen, per default, comes with 3 friends, so it's almost like he has 3 extra actions, which he can trigger by using his command ability, which allows him to use those guys, either producing money, or his ability is he also has a pretty good set of armor, so he can take more wounds than others without, in fact, getting any penalty for that. He also is able to transfer certain types of leads into others, so you can exchange a red one for a blue one, or whatever he uses, which also fits that he has no preference for a specific color and can choose between that's diplomacy or combat quest cards, and always has to pay 5 for any kind of clue or any kind of lead he has. Yeah, he's quite. It's if you play him for the first time, or any of those. Actually, in fact, if you play any of these characters for the first time, take a moment to at least look through the deck of their development cards to get a better idea how they play. I would say a lot of this game is about getting the right timing for ending the development phase and going into full questing mode. What you want to do, the characters by themselves, without any development cards out, maybe except for Geralt, have a really hard time being able to solve quests.
That's an understatement. It's pretty much impossible.
Well, you could still get lucky, but what you want to do is you want to develop. You want to have 4 or 5 of these cards out, giving you more options, just giving you more ways to beat different things. And even then, if you're playing Dandelion, you still want to try to avoid combat things like fighting monsters. You actually might want to prefer Foul Fate cards, because he's pretty good in removing those. So I think Triss has also the ability to remove Foul Fate tokens. So each character has their own way of dealing with that. Let's say monsters in particular, Geralt is good at beating them because he has more dice. Dandelion is good at avoiding them by bribing a friend or having a development card that kind of bypasses the entire encounter. Yarpen has the ability to take wounds without getting penalty, at least 2 of them. And Triss has spells that heal her very quickly. Like she has, I think it's a spell that heals every heart she has on her character sheet, which is very useful considering that you can only perform each action once on your turn and 2 actions per turn. Meaning, if you really want to heal 4 wounds, you have to spend at least 2 turns with 1 rest action each turn. And I think that is the game, or did I miss anything?
Nope.
So, yeah, you race for who has the most points, and sometimes it's not about getting the high score, but trying to get the game to end while you're ahead of everybody else. Sometimes you are the bard who's tugging along with everybody else and grabbing points left and right and letting them do the work for you, and maybe get some money for singing about it. In the wonderful world of The Witcher, which Witcher also comes with monsters from the Witcher world, which personally is something I really like about the Witcher universe, because it's some stuff you don't see that often anywhere else. But that, I guess, brings us to
What you like, what you dislike.
what we like and what we dislike. And I've been talking for so long, and my voice is getting raspy.
Yeah, it's almost 48 minutes.
What?
That's the 4th time that I started the camera.
I'm sorry. This game is actually way less complicated when you play it and explain it while playing. But
I don't mind.
there's a lot of stuff to show.
Yeah.
So I will lean back to the...
Oh, I was thinking maybe
duck.
we make a quick break so that I can have a new coffee and then we go into the likes and dislikes.
I still have
but I don't. Magic of YouTube. And by the witching of the coffee machine and the witching of the YouTube, we are back a second later, but we have nice yummy coffee. It's called editing, I think. I'm not sure. Anyways.
So what did you like and dislike?
So many things.
Okay, I'm going to lean
no,
back.
I'm just... Yeah, now you are looking pretty. Now, what did I like? I liked... as he said, I'm not familiar with the universe of The Witcher. And I, tried to listen when he told me a bit, but I forgot a lot of things pretty much very fast. Not because I wanted to, but just because it's one of those days, you know. However, I really like that the game pulls you into the universe if you like. So you read a lot of the stories and whatnot that are in the accompanying book or rule book booklet, I should say, in the box. So I like that you can get in if you want to, but you don't have to. The game is pretty much nice and well-rounded as it is, without the background story of the whole universe, and you can go into playing and really enjoying it right away without having to read a lot of story beforehand. Also, it feels, but because you have to do so, or you have so many options to do something to achieve the quests and, move along the pointy track.
The pointy track?
The pointy track, yeah, the point track. The thing around the board, the thing, you know. So, because you have so many options and you're pretty much, 50% of the time you're in planning phase for at least the next 2 steps. I am doing that. The game feels way shorter than it actually is. We play, is it up to 90 minutes? I think it was.
I did not check.
But it feels way...
Keep on talking. Distract me while I look
I'm talking. Don't interrupt me.
No, keep going.
Yeah, I do.
I don't hear you talking.
Yeah, back lower.
Keep talking.
So
make this look professional.
If you don't talk over me, it will look professional.
Well, it says 2 to 4 players, age 14 plus, and that's because I have to hold it. Game time says 1 to 2 hours, and that is fairly accurate. Yeah,
but it didn't feel like it. It felt like 45 minutes, but it was like 2 hours that we played at least the first round. Because, having said that, it was the test round, so we didn't look through the deck, and we were trying to figure out how each of our characters played. We didn't look through the cards before the first one.
I was about to say that the first game, the test game, it took way longer.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like that to me. Just there was never that time where I said, I have to wait forever until it's my turn again. Because you're planning so much while the other players do their turn. It's fairly smooth and quick that it's your turn again.
You only have 2 actions.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, it looks like such a complex and heavy game, but once you're in it, it's like, okay, it's this and that, and then hoping to be able to slay the monster or go for the Foul Fate card, and then the other one's going on. around. So I really, really liked just the balance between the heaviness and the, short time, the lightness of the game. I really adored that. Also, the artwork is just gorgeous. So I really like the components a lot. I like the feel and the quality of the components, not only the artwork. And that's always a big thing for me when it comes to board games. Well, being the artist, I can't help it. Also, what it's not a like and not a dislike. It's just something that depends on my mood. I wouldn't bring this game out every gaming night just because you have a lot of components and a lot of stuff in the box. And sometimes I don't feel like I want to have a solid 15 minutes of setup time and everything looking pretty and so many components and put that here, put that there,
Do you think that's...
It's more on the Andor than the
Andor is like a beast to set up.
Yes, but it's more on that part of the scale than the other end of the scale. So, most of the time I really like setting up the bigger games. Like, for example, Andor, setting up that game, that's my job. And I have like 20 minutes, I listen to a podcast, and I get all the pieces out and have the board look pretty and go ready to go before everybody arrives for gaming night or before he stops working and comes over to the other room to play a game. What I did not really like about the game, and it's more like a meh again, is the thing. It's very luck-based what kind of quests you are drawing. And since you only draw 2 and you have to take 1, it's kind of difficult to get to the quests with the higher points. So very often in the games that we had, you were lucky enough to draw the ones with the 12 and the 16. I never drawn any of those. I always hit the 8.
I was about to ask.
And I played different kinds of characters.
But apart from the points, there's not much of a difference between.
No. It's just the chance that you get a quest that has more than 8 victory points written on them is, or could be, quite skinny. Because we played like 3 or 4 games now. I never had one that is higher than 8.
And there I have to say it highly depends on which stack of quest cards you're drawing from, because I'm pretty sure that the red cards are...
I had the red cards and still I was...
have less points on them than the blue and the purple ones.
No. I played... I played blue and red, and I never... I mean, it was just so luck-based. I know that there are cards in there that have higher victory points, but either you have to go wash your hands before we play a game, because he's very good with drawing the high victory point cards, or, I was just very unlucky again. But having... And it didn't take you that much longer to complete your quest.
In fact, someone is really bad in shuffling the cards, because there's quite a lot of 16-point cards in the red deck.
Next time shuffle well. Anyways, the thing is, the last game that we played, you had a 12, a 16, and I don't remember the third card, what kind of value was that, and I had 3 8s. And I was already at my third quest, in the midst of it, getting all the leads together to have enough proofs. And the last one that you draw, I remember, was 16 victory points. And you ended before me. So it doesn't take that much longer to complete that big a quest.
But that was because I was ignoring side quests almost entirely in that round.
Me too.
And I
only if I stumble across them, I'm not going for them.
Well,
it's only if it's on my way to get. I'm not.
I don't recall what you or how you played that game, so I don't know what may have worked out different.
The point I was making is that just because a quest has more victory points doesn't necessarily mean that it takes you that much longer to complete it, which is just something which I find it curious, and I don't really like it. But I don't know how you would work your way around it, because everybody would discard the higher point cards if they are too difficult to, or take too long to complete in comparison to other quests that could be in there. And since you only draw 2, and then you draw the next 2 when you have the quest completed, it's it's just very luck based to get the right quest at the right time with a character that you have. And that's something I'm not too keen on.
There are in fact some special ability development cards that allow you to draw more than 2 cards and choose.
Yeah.
But that said, I'm not entirely sure how much of that is perceived luck dependence. What I mean with that is, every play for me felt like the only thing that involved luck was rolling the dice, because that is kind of the thing with the quest cards. They all felt quite similar, some being more points, some being less points, but I did not find that the challenge to complete them that. Like a 16-point card is not twice as hard to complete than
and that's exactly my point. So of course you'd go for the 16. What if you can't draw a 16?
As I said, it kind of depends on where you are in the world, because in fact, if one of the cards is a 16-point card, but that is at the other end of the game board. So you're just plainly in the wrong location. That is, or might force you to get rid of that card and get the other one, simply because you don't want to spend too many turns going in there. All in all, I would say this is way less luck based than usual games in that area, where you just run around, roll dice, and then... Yeah,
definitely. I was surprised, and I didn't like that specific aspect of the game. The game, all in all, is an awesome game. I just don't get it. Why?
So you're saying you did not like that you lost the game?
I did not win. I did not lose all of the games. The guys were worse than I was. I was second place, and that's okay. But no, I mean, I just don't get it, that this important thing is so... It feels so unbalanced. Maybe it's just me that I gotta wash my hands before I draw the quest cards, because it's like shit is sticking to my fingers. I don't know. But anyways, that was the only thing I was not too fond of. All the rest is very well balanced, and I really, really liked the whole setup of the game, how it presents itself, and components, the feel, the time that you play the game, the difficult parts, the easy parts, the screaming at the board part, and the what the fuck, how can you do that part? So it's all cool.
Now that being said, do you think that you are or were at a disadvantage for not knowing what The Witcher is going in?
No.
Or is that anything where you said you...
I didn't need to have the story or the universe. It's just something that me being so fond of any kind of stories would have been just a nice thing to, get into the stories or the universe more. But you can definitely have a ton of fun with a game without even knowing the universe.
Yeah, right. I mean, that kind of... And I don't want to go into rate this game already.
No, because you have to say what you like and dislike first.
But this, for me, which is... I don't really... It's not a positive. It's a hey, good, that is actually the way which kind of lets us keep the game, because that is not unimportant. To me, the game does not feel like a cheap cash-in on a franchise where some game company or someone comes up and says, hey, people seem to like The Witcher. Also, there's this game coming out soon, and I think initially it was planned to release the board game with The Witcher 3, and as with everything related to board and or video games, delays happened, so that didn't end up.
Yeah,
But it for me it does. Is it very tightly coupled to the game? You could maybe put another theme on this game as well and go with that easily. But it does not feel like someone just
plastered the theme onto an abstract game. Yeah, exactly.
It's not like a cheap cash in, which is really nice to see for someone who in fact likes the world or the universe that The Witcher is taking place in.
I'm going to quickly interrupt you and ask a very important question, but I probably will regret it. Should I read?
I haven't read.
The Witcher stuff.
So I haven't read the books.
Oh, okay.
I have only played the video games, and I enjoyed them very much. It's like The Witcher 2 so far is one of my favorite role playing games of all time.
I remember you sitting in front of the PC a lot.
I mostly like that because of the stories being told, not being the cookie cutter. Good versus evil, or this is the good guys, these are the bad guys. The world of The Witcher is very grey in terms of you kind of try almost to find the least evil thing to support, or whatever you want to do, and the game respects you for making your own choices, which I very much appreciate. And also it's just gorgeous looking, and it's an interesting world that is different from whatever you're used to by Tolkien, because this is heavily influenced by Eastern European folklore. And even while we're on the same continent as them, you might be surprised to hear that this is still not something we come across that often.
No, although it's our neighbor country.
Yeah.
So this one being from Poland. Yeah. Just saying. So it's our neighbor country. I recognize a couple of things just because I do have family in Poland. And as a kid, of course, I went there for vacation and I got the fairy tale books and all of that as well. So I recognize a couple of things where I say, okay, I know that folk tale, but it's still it's a modernized version or a...
Yeah, sure.
So I really like that the old stuff is transported into the 21st century without having that techno babble on, just put on top. It's not plastered down.
So starting off with that, first point goes for not being just a game with this thing painted on. Other things I really like. I've got to say, I really like how diverse all these characters are, and in terms of gameplay mechanics, how you play them, you have to. Every game we played, I tried to play a different character to get an idea of that, and I have to put that out beforehand. There's also a virtual video game version of that available on PC, and I think it's on tablets now available as well. So I've played a couple of those beforehand, and already like kind of what I played there to get an idea how these characters played. So I actually have played this game a bit more than we just played with the board game.
But that actually helped, especially with the tip that you gave us in the beginning, saying try to develop in the first 4 rounds as much as you can. Yeah, so that was a good one.
So they play very different. They have if you're familiar with the lore, you kind of feel like this seems to be the character, and that is I would say the strongest tie, apart from imagery and all the places. It's kind of all the fluff stuff is like, here's a little bit of name dropping. You heard about this town because you have tried to fight rats in cellars in there, doing the typical role-playing game quests. The strongest tie-in is, I would say, the characters, how their gameplay mechanic works out, and how that is oriented towards the characters of the series. For example, I very much like a character, or that there's a mechanic like Dandelion being a bard, getting points for supporting other characters indirectly. Yes, all this goes about solving the main quests, um, but as I said earlier, the points you get for supporting others, or the points you get just for being there or being close to others while they score points with him, it does make quite a difference. And whatever game we played, I think there was only one game, and that's one of the earlier ones where I had a really big advantage.
That was the first game
Yeah,
where you
where
played
I
Geralt.
was like 20 points ahead of all of the others. And that was literally everybody still had to figure out what they were doing.
When we didn't look through our decks
But
at the beginning.
Yeah, despite all the characters being so different, it always felt to me like we ended up quite close in terms of scoring and points.
Yeah. The gap was still significant, but maybe like 10 or 15 points only, not 20. You were not half across the board.
And that being said, if I had to summarize the game and compare it with some other game, I would almost say this felt to me very much like a game like Eldritch Horror, but as a competitive variant, where you have to fight against all the others, but this run around the board, grab quests, solve quests, get points, do something with the points, and then at some point the end game triggers and you see who has the most points. It is quite light, which I think is not a bad thing at all. Every time we brought this out, we quite enjoyed that with our group. We don't have to play the heavy Euro game every time. This is quite thematic. It's nice to look at. It's I would say this, apart from the fact that you're slaying, beheading monsters, and Geralt is in fact carrying around a little trophy head on his side, this might make a fairly nice family game, or at least a game that you can play with others while chatting about some other stuff. This reminds me a little bit of games I had as a kid that were run around some kind of countryside, do some stuff, get points, and at some point the game ends being very colorful, having monsters, having conflict, and all that jazz. Even if it is not, if it wouldn't be tied to the Witcher game, it would just be a generic fantasy kind of game. I think we would enjoy that. But that being said, I would say it helps a lot
to have the Witcher on
that it has the name Witcher on the front and all that stuff in there. Would I have gotten this if it didn't say Witcher? I gotta be fair and say probably not. I think then I would say, well, even if this is similar to games and the
cameras blinking,
the battery is dying.
And the other battery is here.
Tonight.
See you.
Hello again.
Look how warm the battery is.
Yeah, the only warmth I
don't. You will not get dinner. It's stew and soup week. You might want to reconsider.
So just to finish off that thought, what I was about to say, would I have gotten that game if it didn't say Witcher? Probably not, but that being the case, I think that it is still a game, even if it hadn't been labeled as a Witcher game. I would still enjoy it. I might have overlooked it because I would have said, I think we have other games, or
it's not a must-have. It's
something
nice
that covers that kind of experience already. But yeah, if you...
But, sorry, because you just said that. Going through our shelf, do you think we have something that covers that area? And Eldritch is not competitive.
Yeah, it's...
Do you think we
I'm
got something that... I mean, I'm kind of on the Discworld, just because you act similarly
So
through the turns, but then
that's,
again, not really.
That's another thing I haven't mentioned yet. There's almost no interaction apart from apart from the support quests. You almost have no interactions between, or at least direct interaction between players. You interact in kinds of ways by some cards say you have to place a monster and you get to choose in which region they get, and that kind of indirectly influences what other players have to face or how that
but you're
works
not
out.
really.
But it's not like you steal from someone or
you can't really
something.
delay somebody. You can't really get in his or her way.
So yes, you're right. We currently don't have a game that fills that niche, but if you ask my younger self, I had games like this, and
I don't know your younger self.
Let's say this the target audience is 14 to 18 years. Someone who might have read the books, played the video games, and being in that. I think that you can do a lot worse by
definitely
giving them the game as a present or playing that, and
no, for sure. I mean, sorry for my language coming up. There's so much shit and crap that people give to each other. I think gifting board games anyways is a good thing and it's lovely, but this one is a very good one for a teenager. I might even, if they're more heavy on the board games and not the video games, it might just go the other way around. They could be very interested in the board games and then come to the video game and not go the normal cycle.
That being said, if you know someone who is very much into the video game side and you try to convince them somehow to join your board game evening, that might be a good way to do that.
Go there.
It almost sounds a little bit negative when I'm saying, well, it's probably not going to end up in a lot of top 10 lists, but for what it is, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And if you are a fan of the Witcher world, consider it. Can be way worse, and it's also a nice way to be with your friends and play a board game, and why not do that playing a Witcher board game?
Yeah. So, rating?
You start first.
1 to awesome, it's a 7, just because I'm not too happy about the quest mechanism, how you draw them, and how well you might be drawing more than 8 victory point quest. But all the rest is very solid, very lovely. So it gets a 7 out of 1 to awesome, which is the girl way to say 1 to 10, by the way. So, yeah. They got it. How about you?
I would give it 6 necker on a griffin.
If somebody has a translation from that, please leave it in the comments below.
So in terms of would I go to extreme lengths to play this at every board game evening? Probably not. Then again, if someone says, "Hey, let's play a game of that," I'm fairly certain I would say, "Yeah, okay, sure, that's perfectly fine."
You wouldn't turn it down. You do that sometimes with other games, but they're really more on the light side.
Yeah.
But
then just as a word of caution, the time they say with an hour to 2 hours,
more on the 2 hour, I think, right?
If you're playing with 4,
yeah. With just the two of us, it felt even quicker. But we both are people that really use the time that it's somebody else's turn for planning ahead, and then once it's our turn again, we just move and don't really think about stuff.
While this might surprise you, it's because you only have 2 actions per turn. It's another game that might benefit from having a timer.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked a bit about experiences and funny stories and whatnot already. Is there some other happening that you want to add? Because we pretty much already
No, not really. I mean, it's a
said
funny.
the experience.
One of the funny things was when you played with 4 and you were kind of complaining, or well, not really complaining, but you were kind of demotivated.
I drew that one
It's like, I'm
foul card. Oh boy!
I'm in last place now. The game's already going to end, and well, after all, it turned out that she was in second place.
Yeah. You know, there was one thing that really was very difficult. I drew a foul fate card, and I had to put tokens on all of those, and only had to remove them. And then I could discard the card and not. I was not allowed to draw a good fortune card ever for as long as I had that particular foul fate card. And underneath some of those tokens, whenever you have to draw another foul fate card. So I drew so many cards that like 50% said, well, you lose 3 victory points. Well, yeah.
At some point,
Why?
If you don't have space to put those tokens on there, you start losing points. Which hurts.
And that happened fairly early in the game, so I only had 3 or 4 victory points. They were all gone, and if that would have been a mechanic, I would have negative victory points, and I had to pretty much start there. But lucky for me that it wasn't the case. However, underneath a couple of those, when I drew the new foul fate cards, there were other bombs that said, well, put a skull on any of the empty token spaces here. So I just had cleaned up a bit. Boom, the next one. So I was of course demotivated because I didn't know how much that would influence my victory point moving forward thing. So of course I was like, what the heck? No, I'm the loser again. And that was my iPad. Bing!
The important part is I won.
Yeah, go figure. Just like always. But anyways,
if you're interested in this, well, you might give the online the video game version a try. If you're not sure if you want to shell out the money for a full game, it has you can play it solo against the AI, which is a terrible AI, but fine for learning the game. There's only I found there's some very slight differences in rules, or maybe I played one of the games wrong. But yeah, that's it. Props, in fact, for manual. I
forgot.
Not only is the manual fairly easy to get into, it also comes with the Fantasy Flight typical reference manual, which is great. There's no other thing to say about that. It's pretty much every question we had that had a bullet point in the manual where we could look up immediately what we had to do, and that's that. Mm-hmm. And how often we complain about manuals, just want to give a shout out to a really good one, or at least one that worked for us quite good.
Yeah. And I think that wraps up the video for today. Okay?
Forte? It's a forte.
For today.
It's a speech impediment. That's what it is. Goodbye!
No, it's just 1.5 times
goodbye.
Speed.
You don't know. You have to say goodbye then.
No, because there's other things.
I make the final joke and we then say goodbye.
No. As a good YouTuber, you have to follow the following steps. Please like, share, subscribe.
See, that's what just happened. That's what the ping is. We need to have something in here that then makes ping whenever someone likes something. Wow, that sounds great on camera.
No, the mic actually takes away most of it. Yeah, it's my mom, and I have to. She's probably want to discuss a couple of things with me. So again, thank you very much for watching. Have a good one. See you next Sunday. Leave us comments, questions, anything in the section below, and toodaloo with a gummishoe.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.